Let everyone stand and we'll recite the pledge. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice President Wheeler. Welcome, everybody. It's so good to see you. Thank you for joining us tonight for this regular meeting of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees. I'll call the meeting to order. It is just about 7 o'clock straight up. The first item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Board members, do you have any additions or changes to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, does the administration?
The administration has no changes.
Then do I have a motion to approve the agenda for the Monday, October 12, 2020 regular board meeting as presented?
I suppose.
Second. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Any opposed vote nay. That motion carries by a vote of 5-0. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. Board members, do you have any additions or changes to the minutes from the September 21, 2020 executive session and regular board meeting, or the September 30th, 2020 special meeting? Hearing none, does administration?
The administration has no changes.
Then do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 21, 2020 executive session and regular school board meeting, and the September 30th, 2020 special meeting as presented?
I suppose.
Second. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Any opposed vote nay. That motion also carries by a vote of 5-0. We'll move along to the superintendent's announcements and recognitions. Dr. Thacker.
Thank you, President Riley, Board of Trustees. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you. Joining us tonight is our outstanding student board ambassador from Penn High School, Manal Pooch. Welcome, Manal.
Good evening, everybody. President Riley, members of the board of the school trustees, and Dr. Thacker. I'm going to be sharing some athletic highlights and some of our new Kingsman Court projects from the past month and coming month. In athletic news, our girls cross-country team just won sectionals, extending the state's longest active sectional championship to 14 crowns in a row. Lady Kingsman Nicole Marshall won the individual title. Our girls soccer team also earned their sectional championship. Our boys cross-country team also won their sectional championship. And Mariano Retzlaff won the individual title for the cross-country boys. And in terms of Kingsman Court, we're working on a COVID-friendly breast cancer awareness project in collaboration with Penn's club, Kingsman Against Cancer. We're also looking into making voting information more accessible for PHM students and families. A concern was brought up about not many students, seniors especially, knowing exactly what to do come election day and sooner in terms of voting online and with different ballots than usual. So we're hoping to put out some information regarding voting. In celebration of Latinx Heritage Month, we've been in contact with Mr. Gutierrez, who's the sponsor of Penn's Spanish Club, in hopes of spreading awareness for the cultural month. And we'll be sharing a bit of information with our social media followers for our new initiative encouraging cultural inclusivity, and this Latinx Heritage Month post would be our first for the year.
Great. Thank you, Manal, very much. We appreciate your first report. By the way, I'm still holding on to a triangle lapel button for you that I haven't had the chance to get to yet, but we look forward to seeing you here at the ESC. We appreciate your report tonight.
Great, thank you. I also had a question. Some of my peers were hoping to join the board meeting, Kingsman Court execs as well, and they were wondering if they could also be let in. I think they have the link, but I'm not sure how that.
We'll look into that. If anybody has the link, what they do is log in and then we can allow them. So my guess is if they have the link and they've tried to log in, that they've either been allowed into it or that we'll allow them in once they do log in, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Manal. And we'll move on to our next item, which is the highlights from the new school year. Dr. Thacker.
Thank you, President Riley, Board of Trustees. We're so excited. This is a special day. We have, at the elementary level, we now have dedicated teachers teaching either in person or virtually. And I'm delighted to bring up a brand new principal who's doing a fabulous job at Horizon to give us just a brief update. So welcome, Amy Fedorsen.
Good evening, President Riley, Dr. Thacker, members of the board. Thank you for having me here tonight. So he brings up our presentation. There we go. Horizon Elementary's motto is above and beyond. And click. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. And this year, our staff chose a mural to paint on our office wall, representing that vision. You can see two children climbing to the top of a mountain, yet they still reach to go beyond. And I feel that that really tells the vision of what our school and our teachers and staff and families always excel for. They strive for excellence. Every week, there are many ways we try to bring that vision to life and to model that vision for our students. And so we always have a theme every year, and this year it's growing above and beyond, which we think that's very appropriate considering how much we've all learned so much and grown so much in such a short time. And I'm so proud of our families and our staff for the way they've managed their work and their attitudes. And we have two rules at Horizon. We call them life goals, and it's treat people right and do the right thing. And we truly believe that if we can do those things, that we will have success in our relationships and in our school and work and life. So our teachers also model what we call lifelines every month, some character trait building, and they just try to find exemplars modeling this of kids the way they see it or the way they're using it. And August, September was appropriately called flexibility. I think everybody did a phenomenal job exercising flexibility this year. And daily, we have what we call the Horizon Pledge. After our morning announcements, when we say the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence, we say our Horizon Pledge, which not only talks about our life goals, but it also discusses how we can choose our attitudes and our actions, and how we might not always have control over the changes going on in our lives, but we can always control ourselves and how we react to them. We've had many changes this year, but our kids are doing a fabulous job of adjusting. This is our music room set up, and they're socially distanced and masked, but they're thriving and doing a great job. Our lunchroom, the kids are just so glad to be back together, and we're so happy to have them back in the building that we've really not had much difficulty adjusting. And even though there have been some changes, there are some things that will never change at Horizon. And celebrating letter T Day with tiaras, tutus, and tie-dye will always be a long-standing tradition at Horizon. Thank you.
Thank you. If board members, any questions or comments for Mrs. Fedorsen? We're so excited about everything you're doing at Horizon. Thank you so much. I love it. Treat people right, do the right thing. If all of us live by those principles, the world will be a much better place. Thank you for helping to make it happen. Move on to our next item, which is our final recognition announcement. Dr. Thack.
Thank you, President Riley and Board of Trustees. Tonight we'll continue with the series of communications department began as part of the district's Excellence Happens Here marketing campaign during the 2018-2019 school year. Diversity has always been a part of PHM's vision of excellence. It's been one of our major goals. You've probably heard me say many times we value and celebrate diversity. Celebrating it as a strength. It's imperative that we celebrate diversity as a strength. We embrace diversity. If we resist or reject diversity, it becomes a weakness. So it's imperative that we embrace diversity. This summer, Penn High School alumni and students brought some past racial issues to the administration and board's attention. As we engaged in conversations with these past and present students, we realized that unfortunately diversity has not always been celebrated in every corner of our school district. That's why we appointed former Penn Assistant Principal Derek White as PHM's new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer. One major focus that he will have is to provide principals and teachers with additional material to work with their everyday curriculum. We're wrapping up Hispanic Heritage Month, which began September 15th. And this Spotlight on Excellence Happens Here. We take a look at some classroom experiences that took place at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. So tonight's spotlight video was created by PHM's multimedia producer, Mr. Joe Patina.
My name is Mr. White. I am the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for the PHM School District. When you have diversity and you recognize diversity, then naturally inclusion is going to occur. Hispanic Heritage Month runs from September 15 to October 15. We have several teachers who are going to be delivering lessons highlighting our Hispanic culture.
Hispanic Heritage Month is important to me because it allows us to be represented as Hispanics in this country.
4 years ago, I moved to the United States from Ecuador. It has taken me some time to adapt, and it's great.
We had the opportunity, among other things, to start a lesson in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month. What we are hearing about from Lin-Manuel Miranda is kind of his story and his family's story, and that's really diving into our talk on like your speech for informative speeches.
You know, there's sort of two ways of dealing with being an outsider or being a minority culture in a school. You either blend in, or you grab that flag and you wave it as high as you can. And I think I was very much of the grab the flag school. This is awesome. I bring something to the table that my peers don't.
I appreciate like going to Penn, how like they understand that people have different backgrounds and they kind of can respect that.
Hi, I'm Kate O'Brien and I'm the media specialist at Schmecker Middle School. So when I give a book talk, it's really kind of informal. So I just wanted to share some of the stories from Latinx authors. I think it's so important for students to find those different perspectives.
So she is one of Mexico's most famous authors. If you've ever seen the movie Coco, right, she's in there.
There's a lot of research that kids who read are more empathetic to their fellow peers. So I just think that's really important in building a strong community of empathy.
We are doing a special lesson for Hispanic Heritage Month. So this heritage is part of my own background and culture. In Argentina, tango is the popular music of the streets. It's common to see tango dancers meeting up for a milonga, a social tango dance, in public parks, restaurants, and even the train station. Dance called tango from Argentina. Dance called tango from Argentina.
We have a lot of amazing people. Kids are great, the teachers, administrators. Mr. White's in the back. Mr. White, would you please stand so make sure everybody knows who you are? Your new position, you're doing a great job. Thanks for leadership. The administration recommends approval with regard to a consent agenda of the 11 items that are appearing on the consent agenda. Appearing on the personnel report tonight under classified staff are 2 retirements. Lori Heller, guidance aide at Discovery Middle School, who retired effective October 2nd, 2020, following 22 years of service, and Stephen Sampson, bus operator, who will retire on November 20th, 2020, after 17 years of service. On behalf of the board and administration, we wish Lori and Stephen the very best in their upcoming retirements.
Thank you, Dr. Thacker. Board members, any questions concerning tonight's consent agenda?
Yes, I have one. On the classified staff appointment assignments, on the personnel report, Joy Johnson, long-term virtual sub-teacher, they have a payment here of $369.75 a day. Is that correct?
Joy Johnson was a teacher for us for about 47 years. Phenomenal educator, did work with Title I and reading programs. And I believe that when she retired, that was her daily rate. She's an extraordinary educator, and we're truly feeling fortunate that we can bring her back in this critical teacher shortage to bring a phenomenal educator and pay her the current rate that the previous rate that she had when she left. And so she's taking over that role, and she'll be paid exactly what she was last year.
So she's not being paid based on our current sub-pay rate. She's being paid on another rate? Is that what you're saying?
Actually, none of them would be. that none of those people who are becoming the virtual teachers would actually be like a regular substitute teacher. She's going to be teaching that class for the entire semester.
Right, and we have a long-term sub pay rate that we pay for retired teachers, what, 120 a day or something like that, 125? And then if it's long-term sub, it goes up like 225.
Yeah, I didn't have the chance to review what her daily rate was, but I'm positive.
I'm just wondering, I mean, is this something you're gonna do for every teacher then that comes back? I mean, a retired teacher comes back and does a long-term sub job, will they be hired back in at the rate they were paid when they retired? Or are we gonna keep them on a, so this is a good, I mean, it's a great deal. If you're doing it, that's fine. But I just wanna make sure that someone else doesn't take it the same opportunity. That's a lot of money.
Right.
$100 a day, $125 a day more than our, than the long-term sub person.
Right.
That's like,
Great point, Trustee Garrett. We have invited other teachers to come back with exactly the same rate of pay. And
I mean, is this something that has to be negotiated? I mean, a sub pay, or is that something you just arbitrarily determine?
It's an approved rate. It's the same rate of pay she made last year.
But when she's not a teacher anymore. You bring her back as a sub, is that correct?
She's retired, she's coming back and she's doing, right, she's taken over a virtual classroom that she'll take over for the entire semester.
Exactly, so she's hired as a substitute. Or is she hired as a permanent teacher?
She's hired as a temporary teacher.
Okay, so it's not a substitute.
There was nobody in that classroom. It was a virtual classroom that was created. There was no teacher in it.
My point is, she's not being hired as a substitute, she's being hired as a regular teacher.
She's regular teacher pay, she would be a temporary teacher. She won't be on a permanent status.
Well, I'm confused because it says here long-term sub. In our law, we have a rate of pay for a long-term sub in this corporation, and it's not $369 a day. And that's what I'm asking. How is she being given preferential treatment over someone else?
Yeah, we have invited other teachers for exactly the same thing. We've been doing that my entire tenure. Since I've been here, we've brought teachers back who have been paid at a higher rate because they were veteran teachers that worked for us. So we have felt very, very fortunate we've been able to bring in somebody like that. But that's the current rate, that was her daily rate at that point of last year. And you'll probably see more of those as the teacher shortage grows in the state of Indiana. We hope that we can have some of these great educators continue to come back and work for us. Yes, it is listed, and I can see that could be confusing, and we will work to remove that confusion in the next personnel report. But
right, that's what I would like to make note of. If she's hired as a regular teacher, that's one thing. Put it down here, she's a long-term sub, and I know that we have a long-term sub pay scale.
So
and this is not it.
It's maybe it's semantics. So we'll fix that.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Well, any other questions or concerns about tonight's consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the October 12th, 2020 consent agenda as presented by Dr. Thacker? So moved.
Second.
All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Any opposed vote nay. Motion carries by a vote of 5-0. We'll move along to our instruction action item for this evening. Dr. Thacker.
Thank you, President Riley and Board of Trustees. We have another exciting opportunity to hear about our partnership, and I'll ask Assistant Superintendent for Instruction, Dr. Heather Short, to introduce this.
Thank you, Dr. Thacker, President Riley, members of the board. We are excited this evening to welcome Mr. Seth Molnar to give you an overview and update of things happening at Penway, our alternative school, as well as give you some updates relating to what has been the result of our partnership with JAG. So, Mr. Molnar, welcome.
President Riley, Dr. Thacker, members of the Board of Trustees, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about what we're doing in alternative education here at PHM. Specifically, I'm here to gain approval or renewal of our partnership agreement with workforce development, namely our JAG program. But Dr. Thacker asked that I just give you a quick synopsis of what we're doing with alternative education across the district. So we have a variety of different programs in alternative education at PHM. Most notably is our Penway program, and that is our 9 to 12 high school alternative program. And here you can see our wonderful Penway staff. giving everything from math, language arts to workforce development supports. And I really have to give a shout out to them because without them, the wheels would fall off, that's for sure. But with Penway, the students that are placed at Penway are students that have been identified as at risk in one way, shape, or form. What we mean by at risk of not graduating. Some of these students are looking at dropping out or withdrawing from school. Some of these students are so far academically behind that they're off track from graduation. Some of our students are at risk of expulsion. So Penway is an alternative to a traditional environment, and for whatever reason, variety of reasons, they haven't found success at Penn High School. And when they do make the transition over to Penway, more often than not, they do find success. And the reason for that is smaller environment. We know our students, we know their backgrounds, we know their names, their backstories, we know most of their families, we greet them at the door when they walk in every day. It really is a communal feel, and our students appreciate that so much. In addition to that, we can provide that intense individual focus with our students to do everything from language arts to math to workforce development supports in an environment that we support restorative practices and SEL through our YSB counselors. All of this comes down to creating transition plans, goal plans for our students for that inevitable goal of getting across that stage to get that diploma at graduation. With all these supports in place, we have seen that these supports are, for lack of a better term, working. You know, we have seen our average credit per day skyrocket over the last few years, which shows our students are more engaged, our students are getting on track to graduate, and our success rate is just through the roof right now, and we're looking to continue that success. We also have our night school program. Here you can see a great image, or several great images of our night school commencement program. Our adult learners that go through the night school program are afforded their own commencement ceremony. Due to COVID, we weren't able to provide that this past year, but we're looking to rectify that this summer. But our night school program, who is eligible? It's any adult learner that has passed their expected graduation date. And they have a few credits, or quite a few credits, just depending on the scenario, to make up to earn that critical high school diploma. We have, and I say this quite often, we have everybody from 18 to 80 and everything in between, and I'm not exaggerating. And we have a lot of different stories and backgrounds, and we couldn't be prouder of that. But they're all working for a high school diploma. Last year, we had 200 graduates alone. And these adults are using this to leverage a better job, a better situation for their family, which we really see is building a better Michiana, a better community. You know, these adults that are more powerful with the high school diploma than without one. Our PASS program, some of you guys remember this. This is our middle school program that we started last year. This is really designed for, again, those students that just did not find success. And what's different about this as opposed to the high school is these students have gone through some heavy rounds of intervention in the middle school, and it has not worked. So they would get a PASS Penn alternative support setting placement, where our ultimate goal is to get those students back into their traditional building. We don't want them to view alternative education in this setting as the end-all be-all or their last stop. We do want to afford them the opportunity to earn that path to redemption and get back into their traditional middle schools. First year was a dynamite success. We had a number of students that really excelled in a safe, structured, and restorative environment. We practice restorative practices in our buildings every day, all day. We are restorative human beings in that building. Our curriculum is a blend of academics and SEL supports. We know that without those SEL supports, the academics is never going to come. So with our students that are in PASS, just to give you an example, we practice mindfulness every day. We are incorporating SEL lessons from Dr. Sears. We provide a pro-social skills curriculum, an aggression replacement curriculum, all of those skills that those students are going to need to transition back to their traditional middle schools with success. And here is the final component. What I'm really here to talk to you about is just give you an update on JAG. JAG, again, through Workforce Development, stands for Job for America's Graduates. A couple years ago, we recognized that we were doing a great job at Penway of getting our students across that stage to get that diploma, but we were missing a crucial step, and that is getting our students to plan what's next after they leave Penway. And with JAG, we were fortunate to have a nationally recognized program, a nationally supported program, which is doing just that, getting our students to plan next steps. So in our first year, and I promised Mr. Slocum, our JAG teacher, who is doing a fantastic job, that I would highlight some of the great successes with JAG, but our students learned some valuable lessons in year one. They learned that they were valuable as young men and women, valuable as school leaders, valuable as family leaders, and valuable as community members, and valuable as America's future. We had 27 juniors and seniors enroll. All 16 of our seniors graduated. And one great thing about JAG is, a year after they graduate, our JAG consultant, in this case, Mr. Slocum, our teacher, is constantly getting updates on those students and constantly connecting with those students, helping those students with interviews, setting up job interviews, writing resumes for those students. So there is a network of support after they leave Penway. 12 have found gainful employment, 2 are in trade school at Indiana Tech for welding. So we're really proud about that as well. All of our students were constructing resumes this year, learning how it's a living document, how to update that throughout their life, so know how to actively seek better forms of employment. We were lucky enough to partnership with Goodwill Industries. They came in once a week and actually trained our JAG students on Google, and several of our students earned Google certifications in year one as well, which also is great employability skills. We also wanted our students to start to conceptualize, visualize what does the next step look like after high school. We took them to college visits to Ivy Tech. We took them to, we had Northern Ohio University come and speak to our classes. Lincoln Tech, which is a trade program outside of Indianapolis. And also we had the Army and the Navy talking about post-high school careers in the military. But the last thing I want to highlight is, not only do we talk about employment after high school, but how can you be a good community member, and how can you serve the community member, the community in which you live, how to give back. We actually had our JAG students write Christmas cards and notes to the residents of Miller's Veteran Center in South Bend, and actually visited that center to volunteer and understand the operations of that center, and really start to learn how they can give back to the community, which we think is a crucial piece for our students as they transition out of Penway. But we are very excited with the future of JAG, continuing to build, looking at eventually working our students into internship opportunities where they would find paid internship opportunities through JAG. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. If there's any questions you have for me, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Members, any questions or comments for Mr. Molnar?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. I'm really impressed with what you've done. I can see by your passion that you really own your job, and I'm sure that translates to all the students you work with. So what you do is awesome. No kid should be kicked out because they're having trouble in school. And I think that going to the school and doing things that you're doing with them, you and Dr. Sears, it's tremendous, and I applaud you for it. Thank you very much.
Very appreciate that. Thank you.
Other questions? Well, Mr. Molnar, before you go, you might want to stick around for the vote.
I would like to.
But along the lines of what Mr. Garrett said, I remember my daughter, then a junior or sophomore at Penn, asking me, "Do you know Mr. Molnar?" And I said, "Yes." And she marveled, "He's everywhere."
Yeah.
So you're definitely making your impression on our school district, and
thank you.
We appreciate everything that you're doing. Do I have a motion to approve the partnership commitment between the Northern Indiana Workforce Development Board and the Penn-Harris-Madison School Corporation as presented?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Any opposed vote nay. Motion carries by a vote of 5-0. Again, Mr. Molnar, thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Look forward to seeing you again
Well
soon.
done.
Move on to our next instruction report item for the evening, Dr. Thacker.
Thank you, President Riley and Board of Trustees. This is an instructional report, and this one happens to be on special education, which is addressing the compliance of special education. So Assistant Superintendent for Instruction, Dr. Heather Short, will introduce a short report on this special education compliance this evening. Dr. Short.
Thank you, Dr. Thacker, members of the board. It is my pleasure to welcome Ms. Jenna Todd this evening. She is our Director of Exceptional Education. She will be sharing with you some of our excellent news related to our special education students, their programming, and our compliance. Welcome, Ms. Todd.
Thank you. Good evening, President Riley, Dr. Thacker, members of the board. Happy to be up here with you on my 59th birthday. I can't think of anywhere I'd rather be.
Happy birthday.
I assume the gifts will come later. I am really excited to talk to you just briefly about compliance. You know, in special education, there are a lot of compliance rules and regulations through the federal and state guidelines. There are actually 18 different indicators that we're rated on every single year. I'm only going to talk to you about 7 this evening, and then I'm going to highlight one of them. I'm doing my own clicker here, right? Okay. So just to lay it out for you a little bit, we've talked about this before at previous board meetings, but the Indiana Department of Ed and Federal Office of Special Education is who kind of rules over us and checks that we are doing all the things we need to do within the law. In 2018, they initiated something called results-driven accountability. That's known as RDA in my field, and that's generally our annual report card for special ed for this district. That comes out every November. I'm talking to you tonight about last year's RDA report, which came out in November of 2019. So IDEA 2004 is actually what drives all of everything that we do on a daily basis. We have to meet all of the indicators that are within that law, and then we're given a rating. Every single school district in the nation is given a rating. You're either determined to meet requirements, which is the highest rating, need assistance, needs intervention, and needs substantial intervention. In year 1, we hit meet requirements, which is exactly where we wanted to hit. And then in year 2, we did exactly the same thing. So this was our overall score for RDA. And the instrument is broken into different categories and groups of categories, but our goal is to always have the highest score, which is meets requirements. And as you can see, this is what Dr. Thacker and myself are mailed, that we are compliant in every single one of the 18 areas. The one I'd like to, well, first let me point out, I just chose these 6 because it's somewhere to start. You can read for yourself what some of them are. Suspension and expulsion. Kids with IEPs can't have as many suspensions and expulsions. How we identify diversity in several disabilities. Our evaluation timelines, which really is pretty amazing that through the pandemic, our psychologists were able to evaluate students, remotely. We found different instruments and we're able to do that. Our speech pass did that too. So if we don't stay within that percentage of timelines and get them done exactly on the correct day, then we're cited. So really proud of the staff for that. Out of these categories, we had 100% perfect score for PHM. Certainly that's not done alone. That takes our entire team. It takes a village, as you all know, for special education. Tonight, the indicator I wanted to highlight was least restrictive environment. This is a huge, huge, huge piece of what I do every day and what everyone on our staff does every day. So least restrictive environment and inclusion began in 1975. The first time it was passed, it was called the Education for All Handicapped Children Act. Some people refer to it as Public Law 94-142. And what that essentially did was provided every single student a free and appropriate education, regardless of their disability. In 1990, the EHA, as it's known, was renamed IDEA and was completely revised. Next slide, please. So just to give you a few parts of IDEA at a glance. The main ideas of IDEA was that in the least restrictive environment, that we think of it not as a place, but as a philosophy or a principle, and it guides each of our students' educations that have a disability. The special ed law and IDEA says that every child must be in a learning environment with their general ed peers. And the other huge piece was that the least restrictive environment, when people talk about that, they talk about inclusion, they talk about mainstreaming. Okay. So this kind of summarizes LRE for us in the field. We have over 30 years of research and experience that demonstrates that all students that have disabilities can be made the most effective if we have the highest expectations for them. So Penn has always been a leader in this area. Some of you might remember Pam Von Roth. She was the director of joint services when we were Penn and Mishawaka together. Penn and Mishawaka, when we were a cooperative, were the first two districts in the entire state of Indiana to be inclusive, to bring kids back to their neighborhood schools, regardless of their disability, so that they could be included with their general ed peers. So I'm always proud of Penn that we've done that for so long, and we're well known in the state because of it. I did put a link at the bottom of this page with just 7 different research studies on inclusion, should you desire to read any further, for your reading pleasure. Next slide. Okay, so in LRE, we are compliant in this category as well. And of course, the intention of LRE is to make sure that students who receive special ed are included in the general ed classroom as often as possible. And I could stand up here and talk to you about a lot of compliance indicators and say things, but nothing really demonstrates it more than this video that I've linked in that I'd like to share with you now.
I'm Krista Crawford. I have 2 girls. Alexa is 20. She's in the young adult program. And Elizabeth, well, we call her Ellie, she's a junior at Penn. When we were looking at different options for the girls, PHM, she had a one-on-one aide, and that person would help her engage in the activities in the classroom. And then I also liked that the other kids got to be with her, and then even years later, I've run into people that know Alexa from school that I didn't even know she knew. They would come up to us and say, oh, I know Alexa, we were at Penn together, or I know Ellie, she was in my class at Penn.
My name is Angie Aquila, and I have a 2nd grader at North Point Elementary School who has special needs. This is true inclusion and true special ed models where everyone's getting what they need. We have been so grateful for how inclusion has already given him skills and abilities he didn't have going in. Just this week he was at school and he was riding his trike around, and there were some kids practicing stuff in the hallway, and he waved at them for the first time. My son has never waved before. He sees his peers and he sees them and they see him, and it's definitely a community environment for him to gain skill sets that otherwise we adequately can't teach him.
I also think it was good for the other kids in the class because they got exposed to, kids that have special needs that are different.
So it's just one of these well-oiled machines that's individualized for each child with special needs. And for me, I've seen a lot of special ed models, and I've worked in schools and seen that in other places. I've never seen what they do. I've never experienced that level of kindness and fervently working to get him to be where he can be.
Huge thank you to Lucia and Joe, who really helped me piece that together. That was so incredibly helpful. I think the parents kind of speak for the program. I'm so in love with that little guy, Eli. He's just a doll. I had one more slide at the end. So we are so grateful as an ex ed department to have a school board and a superintendent who support inclusion. and who care about all kids regardless of their abilities. That's so very important to us. And kudos to the staff. There's around 350 ex-ed employees, from therapists to psychologists to my two incredible supervisors, Beth Zachary and Rebecca Allen. I'm so privileged to be a part of the Learning Division, who are such great partners. Dr. Short, Dr. Schneider, Mr. Molnar work so beautifully with us and support us in anything that we need. And then, of course, all the general ed teachers and administrators. I know Amy's gone, but we couldn't do it without them because they're such compassionate collaborators with us. They have all those little kids in their classrooms and work with us as a team. And then, of course, our parents. They mean everything. They work so hard for their kids, and we need them so much, and they're such great partners. So that's the conclusion of my presentation, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Board members, questions or comments from Ms. Todd? Ms. Todd, on behalf of the board, we recognize the incredible effort that you put into it. Thank you so much for this presentation. Mrs. Gates?
I just want to thank you for everything you do, having so many kids in the district. I have two daughters that were in class with Alexis and Ellie, and they have they learned so much and grew so much from that friendship that they had through class and just with their helpful, their instructional education teachers as well reached out and brought everybody in, and I'm just so thankful. I've been on both sides as a parent, with the child that got to help out and with the child with the IEP.
Yeah.
And I have seen my children with the IEP grow in the same regards just from that time around their peers and those peer models. And our program in the preschool is just amazing, meeting those kids early on, that early intervention. When we added that piece in, it has done great things for our community, and I'm so proud of that program and all you do.
Thank you so much, Angie, for saying that. Appreciate it.
It was a highly impactful video too.
Thank you. That's the talent of Lucha and Joe. Thank you very much.
I believe it. Thank you so much. We'll move on to our next item, which is an action item on capital improvement projects. Dr. Thacker.
Thank you, President Riley and Board of Trustees. Chief Operating Officer, Mr. Aaron Lensky, will share with us tonight information on two 2020 capital improvement projects. Mr. Lensky?
Thank you, Dr. Thacker. Good evening, President Wright and members of the board. It was good to see you. Tonight, the administration would like to present some design concepts and seek permission to advertise for some interior remodeling at our support services center. That's the building located just next to the football stadium, and it houses a lot of our operations, and we're looking to move some more operations out there. Currently, we have our Sodexo administration in that building, our assistant facilities directors, our PHM materials and supply warehouse. We have a space for our VSS safety and security supervisor. We also have the district short-term and long-term file storage, and we're looking to get in compliance with some things the state's asking us to do. And we also have lawn equipment. So this summer I worked with Schmidt Associates, asked them to review that building. That building was originally designed to be our transportation center. At one time it housed our infrastructure for our technology offices. And so now we're kind of in that third phase, and there's some changes that need to be made to better suit the needs of the district. So what I asked them to do is create some additional office space. We're looking to move Joe Winters, our director of facilities, and his secretary out to that building to be with the rest of the operations team. We're going to reconfigure some space currently used by Sodexo. We're going to relocate our security personnel to a new office. We've got a garage that we've opened up. We've reduced some of the materials that we've had and got rid of some outdated equipment. And so we're looking to move that person out to that space and give them an isolated space. We're going to create a little conference room, and there is a small break area that's in a hallway to service all of those personnel. Some things that it requires, obviously, from an architectural standpoint, we have some walls and ceilings and doors, some interior finishes to reconfigure that space. We do have some mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and technology that needs to be updated. We've done a lot of that in our buildings, in our school buildings, and we have some challenges because we have not included that in previous projects, so we're going to bring it up to date. And we're also looking to do an alternate bid for some building signage, and that's all inside. But that's something that we can do at any time, which is why it's an alternate. The estimate on the budget for the project is $299,000, and obviously we're looking to advertise and bid this, and then we'll bring that back to you for approval. We're looking to do this in 4 phases because this building is currently in use, and so we're phase 1 would include that dark blue area, and that would be the reconfiguring. I'm sorry, phase 1 first would be the moving our. I don't think this has a laser on it, does it, Steve? Maybe it does. It doesn't show up. Oh well. The light blue area, you can see it says phase 1 in the bottom right-hand corner. Yeah, it's working. It's just not. Oh, there you go. Phase 1 right here. That is going to be a new security office. That entire garage is actually going to be just for safety and security. We have a safety security small vehicle. We have a lot of signage, all of the cones, all the things that we use on a daily basis to keep our students safe. Currently, we're housing those in a file storage area, and that's something that we're really not supposed to be doing long term. So we're going to move all of that stuff out into this new area. We're looking to add some office space into a current lawn mowing space garage that we'll be adding in phase 1 as well. Once those are established, phase 2 will be remodeling that dark blue area. Sodexo will then move back to that area, and then that front yellow area will be our last phase, and that will turn into the operations or facilities center. You can't see these because they're pretty small. I know you have them on your computers. You can kind of see what the layout it currently looks like in our demolition plan. And then if you flip to the next one, the floor plan will show you what it will look like when we're completed with it. So certainly this is a project that's probably long overdue. Like I said, this will be the 3rd use of that building, and so we're just trying to bring it up to speed to best serve the district long term. Happy to answer any questions you have. Otherwise, we do respectfully request approval tonight.
Okay, board members, any questions or comments for Mr. Linsky? Okay, hearing none, there are 2 motions that I will present related to the 2020 capital building improvement projects. We'll take 1 vote on both motions. So I have a motion to authorize the advertisement for bids on the support services center improvements. And then secondly, the motion to approve the change order for Penn High School addition in the amount of $32,989.
Second.
All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed vote nay. Motion carries by a vote of 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Linsky.
Mr. Riley.
We'll move on to our next business action item, Dr. Thacker.
Thank you, President Ryan. Board of Trustees, this evening we bring to the board 2 new policies to consider for action. These 2 new policies were first presented to the board at the September 21st, 2020 board meeting for discussion and review by board attorney, Mr. Jeff Johnson. Mr. Johnson will present the 2 policies on board this evening for adoption. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Dr. Thacker, President Riley, and members of the school board. Last month, 2 new policies were presented in a first reading. Since that September 21st meeting, the administration has received no questions or comments in relation to the new policies. These policies are now being presented this evening through a second reading and for approval. First, policy 8450.01, protective facial coverings during a pandemic and epidemic events. The proposed new policy addresses the use of face masks and other face covering apparatus during a pandemic or epidemic. The Indiana Department of Education requires all school corporations that apply for face masks from Indiana Department of Education to have a face mask policy, and this proposed policy will satisfy that requirement. The second new policy up for the second reading this evening is policy 2266, non-discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs or activities. This spring, the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights amended existing Title IX regulations. The amended regulations and commentary exceed 2,000 pages. These new regulations brought about sweeping changes on how educational institutions address, investigate, and adjudicate allegations of sexual harassment occurring within their programs and activities. At the first reading in September, the board expressed its opinion that the policy should specifically identify the two Title IX coordinators in order to make it easier for anyone with an issue in relation to a Title IX issue to contact one of the coordinators. As you will see, we have revised the policy to include the names of the Title IX coordinators, which are Dr. Short and Mr. Mike Luhrmann. This change appears on page 5. This new policy addresses and incorporates the changes mandated by the revisions to Title IX regulations.
Questions and comments for Mr. Johnson? Do I have a motion to adopt policy 8450.01, protective facial coverings during epidemic events, and policy 2266, non-discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs or activities as presented?
I so move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Any opposed vote nay. Motion carries by a vote of 5-0. Mr. Johnson, thank you again, always for your great work in helping us out with these policies. We'll move on to our next business hearing item, Dr. Thacker.
Thank you, President Riley and trustees. Mr. Jerry Hawkins, Executive Director of Business Services, will lead us in this public hearing on the additional appropriations for the rainy day fund. Mr. Hawkins.
Thank you, Dr. Thacker, President Riley, members of the board. Tonight, as the next step in the process, we ask for you to conduct a public hearing, and then at the conclusion of that hearing, we would approve, actually, the order, we could approve the proofs of publication and then conduct the hearing, and then adopt the resolution that goes with it. So, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. Members of the board will take a vote on publications. Do I have a motion to approve the proof of publication and posting to the notice to taxpayers of the rainy day, of the public hearing on the additional appropriation for the rainy day fund?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Any opposed vote nay. That motion carries by a vote of 5-0. We'll now move on to the public hearing. I'll open the public hearing on the additional appropriation for the rainy day fund. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address this particular item? Hearing none, then we'll close the hearing on the additional appropriation of the rainy day fund. Board members will now vote on a resolution. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution for the additional appropriation for the rainy day fund?
I so move.
Second. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed vote nay. That motion also carries by a vote of 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. We appreciate your work. Move on to board requests and reports. Board members, do you have anything to request or report? Hearing none, then we'll move on to the hearing of visitors. Is there anyone in attendance this evening who would like to address the board? Okay, let me read the general disclaimer. At regular meetings, the public is invited to address the board on general topics under the hearing of visitors without registering. A time limit of 3 minutes shall be enforced for persons wishing to speak during the hearing of visitors. Board Attorney Jeff Johnson will keep time and will alert you as time expires. We do request that you observe the 3-minute time out of respect for the time of others. It is requested that names and addresses be stated at the beginning of such comments. Individuals may speak only once during this section of the agenda. Personnel issues are not to be addressed during open sessions of the board. Concerns about individual employees of the district should be brought to the superintendent or his designee. The board does not respond to questions or comments posed during the hearing of visitors.
Janice Worrell, 16733 Jackson Road. I am here as an advocate for special ed. You'll have to excuse me, I'm literally shaking right now because of the presentation. But I would like you to record, to take note, and to document what I'm saying. I need to get a paper trail going. And for each one of you that is up here listening to me, take note of what I'm going to say. I'm asking you right now to change the model that you use for special education. And I have 4 reasons why. Number 1, it violates Public Law 94-142, which was just up on the screen. Soren's education is not free, it is not appropriate, and it does not meet the least restrictive environment. And it was put up on the screen that the least restrictive environment means that a child is to be with their peers to the maximum extent possible. That was just up on the screen. And they are to be in there as often as possible. That doesn't mean 100% of the time. And that's what's got me so frustrated. We took Soren to the doctor, and I saw a psychologist who said, Soren should not be in this program like you have. Number two, it discriminates. And I've been giving you several reasons why it discriminates, and each one of you must be okay with this discrimination because you're not doing anything to change it. The third thing is, and this I'm really upset with, because Soren came home the other day with blood all over his stoma pad. That is the result of not training the people that are working with him correctly. There's been 3 things that happened, and I was told not to talk about them, so I'm not going to talk about them. But these were potentially life-threatening things for my grandson. And then the last thing is that your program does not meet the needs of every special ed student. One size doesn't fit all. Data shows, is what I'm told, that your program is the best. We have Soren in your program. He is data, and it's not the best program for him. I can guarantee each one of you men that if you took Soren to the bathroom with you and let him watch you use the urinal, he is not going to learn how to do that because he doesn't have the parts to do it. I can say each one of you women could take Soren to the lunchroom and let him watch you eat all the time, and he's not going to learn how to eat because he doesn't have the right parts. And you can sit down with him and cut and color and draw and do all kinds of things with your hands, and I can guarantee you, I'll bet you $1 million, he's not going to grow hands in your program by seeing other people with hands. He's not normal. I'm going to keep talking because
Ma'am, your 3 minutes are up. Please take your seat.
The President of the United States
Ma'am,
finished
your 3
his.
minutes are up. Please take your seat. I'm going to ask the board attorney,
I can't.
Mr. Johnson, these allegations that the school district is out of compliance with the laws that govern special education keep recurring. Mr. Johnson, have you had an opportunity to look at our special education procedures to see whether they are in compliance with the law specifically mentioned as Public Law 94-142 and also discriminatory practices? And if you have, do you have an opinion on whether we are and remain in compliance with the law?
Yes, in fact, I have had an opportunity to look at our practices in association with the law, but not only myself, and I'd like to say to the people in this room and those who are joining us via the live stream, President Riley, it's not only myself who has looked into this, but it is the state, at the state level through the Indiana Department of Education, and at the federal level through the Office of Special Ed, have both do audit our exceptional education programs. And as was shown this evening, we are fully compliant, legally, totally fully compliant, but better than that, we have the highest grading possible for our exceptional education program, as we saw today, and have had for every time that they have audited us, we have been the highest possible you can have. So yes, rest assured, anyone in this room or anyone viewing via live stream, Penn-Harris-Madison takes exceptional education for its students very seriously and does an excellent, highest rated job. Not by, don't believe me, we believe the Indiana Department of Education and the federal government through the Office of Special Ed have consistently found that to be the case.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We appreciate you looking into that and make sure that we're in compliance. I do appreciate that. Is there anybody else who would like to address the board?
My name is Debbie Serrani, 1803 Larkspur Court, Mishawaka, Indiana. My daughter wants to know some information and she's not able to make it here tonight. The COVID virus has caused a lot of problems in the school, especially for the students. And I have 4 grandchildren in the Penn District. She would like to know if and how the school is tracking student progress other than by grades. Also, regarding the grades, have they done a study to determine if student grades are lower than in prior years when they were in school at a face-to-face learning? She would like to know overall for the entire student population what the impact has been and to see a breakdown by age, grade, etc. We need to do more to identify kids at greater risk for regressing and failing and potentially to do more to help them. I have a grandson that has been very, very upset about this. He's in middle school and just recently they did put them back 2 days a week, which I'm thankful for that's very helpful. I hope that it's going to soon be all day. And I haven't seen as much. I have a lot of friends that have kids in the high school. They're not having as much difficulty, but the middle school kids, which in my opinion are more emotional. And just recently my daughter works full time and she noticed her son was having some problems. And thank God he did contact his teacher because he doesn't know his teacher this year very much from 2 years ago to let her know that he was really feeling strange. He didn't like the way he was feeling. He was very upset. And what could he do? Because he needs to be in the school. He needs that constant attention from the teacher. You know, I worked at Riley High School. I know the teachers can kind of like be a parent to these kids. And I really hope and pray that this will not ever go back to taking the kids out of school again. I have an elementary child grandchild that's also in the school. And he was doing terrible. And I was with him, watching him with all these kids. And it's difficult for the teachers. It's done, okay. So I just hope that this is going to not regress and go back to keeping the kids out of school. I think it's very, very important that they're in school.
Thank you, Ms. Serrani. You know, Dr. Thacker, Ms. Serrani raises a great point that we've discussed. I know that the administration is tracking the impact on learning since virtual has begun because of COVID. Will the administration be prepared to make a public statement about it in an upcoming school board meeting?
As we get into this a little longer, we'd love to share some results of what we're finding with formative assessments. Although we don't have some of the statewide assessment data because the state discontinued that, we'd be glad to show because we benchmark with the students. We have curriculum maps, we have the curriculum standards for every single grade level and all those courses. And so we would be delighted to share it because, as you probably know, we rank in the top 4% in the state of Indiana in student achievement. We're an A-rated school system. We have among the highest number of 4-star schools and A-rated schools in the entire state. So we're very proud of what we do. We have that triangle of success, and we appreciate the parents' involvement of connecting students, teachers, and parents because we do it together. And so we're really proud of the work that is going on. Our teachers have done extraordinary work, put together lots of different learning plans for virtual and in person. And so we'll be glad to share some progress reports with the community.
I really appreciate you being here and make that suggestion tonight. We'll keep track. Is there anybody else in the boardroom who would like to address the board? Hearing none, then the next item on our agenda is the adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting? Second. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Motion carries by a vote of 5-0, and we are adjourned at 8:03 p.m.